And I am just making sure that everything is working the way it's supposed to. I'll give everyone a few minutes to pop in. Today we're talking about reweaving your life, or if you want to think about it in a different way, reinventing your life. And we're speaking to this predominantly from a place of people who've been diagnosed with a chronic condition, right? So today's topic is reweaving your life. Let me just turn this down, make sure it's turned off. And it comes from page 93 of the book that I've been being inspired by, Fragrance After Rain by Dr. Jaiya John. And I'm telling you that pretty much everything in here has, kind of really touched me on so many levels, especially in relation to having been diagnosed with many different, having received many different diagnoses, and now at a place where life is completely different from when I was first diagnosed, and being able to speak from that, and just this book is such a powerful book. So today's is coming from page 93, and I'm going to go ahead and read that first, and then we'll jump into the message that I wanted to share with you today. So it starts off saying, "Precious child asks grandmother, what does it mean to reweave your life?" Grandmother answered, "Unlearn your old harmful ways, learn your new healing ways, garden the stories you tell yourself, allow beauty to run like a river through your soul again, permit peace to graze your heart, drink the rain, savor the sun, love like love loves." And I could probably just kind of stop right there and have you all just really think about all of that, but right. It is just just that little nugget is just so powerful, right? For those of you who are just joining, this is day 5 of 31 Days of Lupus Awareness, Inspiration, and Motivation, coming from Fragrance After Rain by Dr. Jaiya John. When I was coming up with how I wanted to approach Lupus Awareness Month, I knew I wanted to do something different. And this book has really been just a great tool for me to work with. I worked with it from a journaling standpoint, but so many passages in there really kind of hit home in relation to life since my lupus diagnosis and since my healing journey started, all of that stuff. So I thought that would have been, the perfect book to work with. So I reached out to the author and explained to him what I was going to be doing, and he approved it. So, and I'm going to work on getting him to, try to make an appearance maybe towards the end, but he has such a busy schedule. So it may not happen this time, but at some point I'd really love to be able to sit down and interview him and just have him share his wisdom with you, because he's such a powerful speaker. But you can look him up on YouTube as well, Dr. Jaiya John. All right, so day 5, we're talking about what does it mean to reweave your life, right? When you think of a weaving, you tend to think of, and before I tend to kind of jump in thinking that everybody knows who I am. Those of you who don't know me, my name is Gina Wells, and I have been on my own lupus journey since at least the last 10 years. I don't even remember exactly when I was diagnosed, but it's been at least a decade. But I received several other diagnoses leading up to that, right? I think I've received probably 12 or 13 different diagnoses in the last 2 decades. Right. So I have been on this healing journey like so many of you who are who've been diagnosed with lupus or some other chronic condition or autoimmune condition, right? And you notice that your life kind of really changed once you received this diagnosis. Your doctor looked at you and said, "This is what you got, and here's what's going to happen. Here are the pills you're going to have to take. Here is how your life is going to go from here on after." Um, and you had a choice. You could either kind of swallow that, you know, prognosis, or you made a conscious decision to say, okay, I appreciate what you just said, but I know that I have a choice in how my life goes on from here on out, right? That's what we're going to be talking about today. What does it mean to reweave your life? Because chances are, once you receive that diagnosis, things change and life was no longer the same. So you literally, if you look at your life as being a type of tapestry or a weaving, different things are woven throughout, right? Everybody has this tapestry of life, and what's woven into it has all depended on how we've been raised and things we've done, things we've not done over the years. Depending on how old you are, that would determine kind of how intricate or how big or how vast your tapestry is at the moment, right? But the thing is, you can reweave, or let me put it another way, kind of reinvent yourself after a lupus diagnosis or after a diagnosis with some chronic condition, right? You can reinvent yourself, and that's what we're going to talk about today. A chronic condition diagnosis does not have to be a death sentence, and it doesn't have to mean that you are going to be kind of stuck in that role of that's the only identity you're going to have is you and this particular diagnosis. And we talked about this yesterday and the day before about not latching onto or having an attachment to the particular diagnosis that you might have received, right? So what does this mean, reweaving your life? At times our life tends to get kind of, the edges tend to get frazzled, and that's what a diagnosis of a chronic condition does. It literally kind of frazzles our edges. Or if you imagine your tapestry in your head, the edges are kind of starting to fray. They're not holding together like we hoped, like we had planned all along. And now with this diagnosis, it seems like things are kind of falling apart. But I would encourage you that things could actually be kind of, we hear this over and over. Things might not actually be falling apart. They might be falling into place. And sometimes things have to kind of fall apart in order to kind of guide us on the journey where we're supposed to be going anyway, right? Because a lot of us tend to get stuck doing things that don't necessarily bring us joy or nourish our soul, but we do them anyway. So sometimes it takes kind of a shaking up and a shifting around to kind of put us on the path to where we're supposed to be going anyway. So this unraveling, this kind of breaking apart or pulling apart of the threads by the diagnosis may actually be a good thing. So I'm encouraging you to kind of look at it as a good thing. Initially, when you're in that moment and you receive that diagnosis, you're not thinking about, oh, well, maybe, no. And I completely get it. Nobody, when they receive that diagnosis, is looking on the bright side of anything, because I can almost guarantee that when you first receive that diagnosis, there is like no bright side for you to see, right? It does take some time to get to the place where you can actually see a bright side to all of this that you're going through. It does take time. Been there, done that, completely understand. I completely get it, right? But we have to get to that place where we understand that this unraveling is actually a way for us to kind of come back to the person who we are designed to be, right? And I'm going to talk a little bit about my own personal experience to kind of share with you where I've been. So I wanted to throw out, just imagine for a moment, a spider. Spiders spin webs. And to me, the art of a spider if you've, and I do call it art, it's nature's art, it's spider's art. If you've never seen like a really big spider web with all of the intricate, designs that's on there, um, oh my gosh, I'm always amazed. I used to go to um, this nature preserve early in the morning, like around 5:30, before the sun is rising. But just as the sun is coming up, there are these enormous spider webs, and they have the dew just kind of hanging off of them. And then the sun is rising, and it's reflecting through the dew that's hanging off of the spider web. I have some amazing pictures that I've taken. It's art, but we're using the spider and the webbing as a way to talk about how to kind of reweave our lives. Because most people will see the completed spider web, but I don't know if you've ever seen a spider that undoes the web, right? Yes, they put together the web, but there are times when the spider will come behind and will take out parts of the web. And I've watched them do that. And it's because well, maybe that wasn't supposed to be there. I don't know what a spider's thinking, but it always intrigues me when I see that happening, that even in nature, sometimes they kind of unravel this web and then they put that piece back together the way that they intended it to be, right? And even watching birds build nests, I watched a couple sandhill cranes the other day actually clearing away a certain area in the lake. They would pick up a piece, throw it over there, then they'd pick up another piece and put it in a certain spot. And I watched them just clear this area out and then bring in other things to really build that nest as strong as they needed it to be. And I thought to myself, here are these two birds. We call them, when people use this thing as an insult, bird brain. But I'm watching these two birds out here and they are doing some intricate work, right? I said, I have learned so much just watching these birds build their nest, but yet we call them bird brains. And the same thing with the spider, right? There's some of the most amazing art is designed by this tiny little thing called a spider, right? So we're going to talk a little bit about that. So in the passage from page 93, let me go back to that real quick. It says that we are to unlearn our harmful ways. So chances are we didn't get to this place overnight. We might say, we suddenly got diagnosed with this thing, right? Or all of a sudden this diagnosis happened, but it really wasn't all of a sudden. It has been brewing for months, maybe even years, and we've gotten a little bit of signs along the way that we may have ignored, and then boom, we get this diagnosis because our body decides, okay, you're not going to pay attention. Let me wake you up. Let me give you a wake up call, and boom, something big happens, and then we end up with this major diagnosis that kind of, at the time seems to shatter our lives, right? But it wasn't something that happened overnight. It's something that has been developing over time, and sometimes it's stuff that we've kind of done to ourselves, especially or things that maybe others have done to us, right? So it could be a combination of all of those things. It could be a combination of the foods we eat. It could be a combination of different traumas that have occurred, that have happened to us, or it could be things that we've done to ourselves as well. So all of that, because one of the things I did mention a few days ago was there's another book I wanted to share, and I've shared it with you before. The Body Keeps the Score, and this one, The Body Remembers. Our body tends to hold on to those things, if we don't heal from them, then they manifest themselves eventually into some kind of dis-ease or illness or disease, right? However you want to look at it. So we have to go through and we have to kind of play detective of where these particular traumas might have occurred and determine how they might have impacted us. Have we healed from them? That is going to be one of the big questions that we'll have to answer once we really start to dig deep, right? And do this, what we call shadow work, right? It's really going in and finding where is it that, we might have been holding on to things, and then our body kind of exploded with this particular discomfort or disease or disease or illness or whatever you want to call it. So that is part of where the whole unlearning, the whole har- unlearning your harmful ways are coming in. It's kind of looking at, seeing, playing detective, playing investigator, figuring out what happened to have put us in the place that we are in right now, and finding out all of that, healing from it, and moving on. And once you, that's one of the biggest parts of healing, is healing from the traumas. And to me, that is one of the kind of the overlooked factors when it comes to any kind of therapy. um, unless unless you're aware of this sort of stuff, you don't really know that's one of the areas to look at. Most people, their doctors will tell them, okay, you've got to change your diet. If they tell you that, a lot of doctors really don't. Maybe change your diet, or you have to take these pills because your body is kind of trying to kill itself. So we have to suppress your immune system by taking these pills, which then in turn cause a lot of other concerns, right? So unless you really know what you're looking at, or if somebody has, kind of hinted that there might be some traumatic event that you haven't healed from, that's causing what you're dealing with, then you don't really want to know, you don't really know to go and look for that, right? So that's one of the main things, unlearning harmful ways. Then, of course, there's also learning your new ways of healing, right? Once you've addressed all of the potential traumas that might have excuse me, might have gotten you to where you are right now. Let me just take a sip. Then the plan is to then go ahead and start to learn new ways of healing, because what you've been doing in the past may not have been working, right? And I went through that same thing. I tried one thing, then I tried another thing, and I tried another thing. And so it wasn't just one thing that actually worked for me, it was a combination of things. So I literally had to go in and kind of learn, after unlearning all of the stuff, right, that I thought I needed to know, all of the traumas that occurred that I knew I needed to heal from and release and forgive and kind of move on. Then I also had to embrace new methods of healing, right? Things that might have been considered, and I also talked a little bit about this yesterday, methods that might have been considered taboo, I found myself kind of drawn to in trying to figure out, well, maybe they could help. So by working with a lot of these, I found that a combination of them worked for me, and it really propelled me on my path of healing, right? But imagine a gardener. Let's think about the gardening for example. When someone is planting a garden, we don't just get some plants and dig a hole and we stick that plant in. We tend to make sure that the soil is really well nourished, that it has all of the nutrients that it needs, right? So especially here in Florida, the soil is pretty much sand, right? So we do have to do a lot of amending of the soil. So we dig up the soil that's there, and then we might bring in fertilizer, we might bring in some other topsoil, and we mix all of that in, right? Really nourish the soil that we are about to put our plants in, because once you put the plants in, you want to make sure that you're giving them the right foundation to really blossom and grow into the plants that you need them to become, right? But at the same time, we kind of, we can't just plunk them into an environment that we know is not going to be healthy, right? So it's the same thing with us. We have to go through and really clean out our garden. We have to do a lot of weeding in our garden that involves things that we might have learned when we were 5 and, doesn't really serve us anymore, but yet we're still holding on to it. So we got to go in and weed out all of that stuff and seed with the things that we know are going to kind of propel us towards our healing. So we're doing the weeding, and then we're doing the seeding, right? And then the next one is coming from that passage is gardening the stories that you tell yourself. And one of the things is it's changing the conversations we have with ourselves, changing the conversations we have and the way we speak to ourselves, as well as speak about the diagnosis that we received. By that I mean I know I've heard a lot of people say like I have, and they fill in the blank with whatever particular illness, right? But it's the word I have and then that blank that comes afterwards, that's the problem. When you say I have, you're kind of taking ownership, right? And when you take ownership of it, I'm probably going to butcher your name, Alasha Summers. Thank you for stopping in. When you take ownership of an illness, your body actually listens to that. And it says, oh, you want to own this thing. Let me just give you a little bit of more of what it is that you want, right? But when you start to speak about having a diagnosis of a particular thing, notice the energy is completely different. You're saying, I've been diagnosed with something, not I have something, right? And that is what I'm talking about when I say we need to kind of change the conversations we have with ourselves. One of the things I did many years ago is, and even today, you would never hear me say I have and fill in whatever diagnosis is at the end. You always hear me say I have been diagnosed with, because as far as I'm concerned, I am not my diagnosis. I am not whatever illness I've been diagnosed with. I am me, and the diagnosis for me is a temporary state that I am working through. But I don't own it. It is not me, and I will not take ownership of it. Right? So that's what I mean by changing the conversations we have with ourselves. And it doesn't necessarily have to be just relating to a diagnosis. It could be relating to financial matters. Things like, for example, I hear a lot of people saying the words I am and then broke after it. When you take the ownership of that word, there's no way that you're going to be able to actually call in financial abundance, because you're already saying you're taking ownership of being in a broke state, right? So you can say that, something different, like maybe my purse is ready and willing and able to receive financial flow, right? You're not saying that you're broke, but that's pretty much what you're saying, just in a different energy stream, right? So that's what I mean by kind of changing the conversation. It's the same thing with your health. Instead of saying things like I am sick, you say I am on a journey to health. You notice there's a completely different energy with those two sentences, right? Saying I am sick, you're taking ownership of being sick, and you will continue to be that way because that is what you're calling in. Now, saying you're on your journey to health, right? And every day there's a visualization that I would do where I would literally kind of turn my eyes inside and look within my body and tell my body that it needs to go back to the original state of health, that every cell in my body was completely healthy and functioning in a state of homeostasis, doing exactly what it was designed to do. It might not have been at that moment working the way that it was designed to do, but I spoke to it as if it was, so that a couple years later, that's exactly what it did, because I changed the conversation that I had with myself and said, listen, I want health. Health, health, health. That's what I'm calling in. That's what I'm speaking to my body. And my body listened and said, okay, you want health? That's what I'm going to give to you. Right? So I'm encouraging you to kind of change the conversations we have around, the diagnosis. Don't take ownership of the diagnosis. Take ownership of health, even while working through the different symptoms or whatever it is that you might be dealing with at that particular time, because your body does listen to the conversations that you have with yourself. The next one is cultivate peace, and these are these are the things that the grandmother had told to the grandchild when asked, right? So cultivate peace. You cannot be healthy when you're constantly in turmoil, where you're living in chaos all the time. So you have to find um, you have to cultivate peace for you, even if it's 30 minutes a day. You give yourself that time, whether it's, getting into your room and finding your little sacred area, your sacred space. Maybe you're meditating, maybe you're just listening to some really calming music or your favorite music that kind of mellows you out, for lack of a better word. Putting yourself into that space for 30 minutes to an hour. Maybe it's taking a bath salt soak at the end of the day and just really allowing that water to just wash the cares of the day away. Right. So we're not saying that you might necessarily live in complete peace for the entire 24 hours of every day, but you have to get to a place where you can cultivate that peace for yourself, whatever it is that that looks like for you. For me, it's, sitting by the water. Sometimes I have my mala and I might be out there just kind of praying, just meditating. Sometimes it's just taking a nap, right? Lay down and you just take a nap because you just need that space. Sometimes it's sitting down and just listening to music, or sometimes it's grabbing my drum and doing some drumming. So whatever it takes for you to cultivate the peace for you, do that, because for every person it's going to look different. And this is whether you've been diagnosed with a chronic condition or not. This can work for everyone, right? So cultivate peace for you. And this part I thought was really interesting. The grandmother said to the little girl or the little boy, um, drink the rain. Now, that all depends on where you are, because we know this whole thing about acid rain, right? But I think the idea is, so many of us are kind of afraid. When I was growing up in Jamaica and in the Cayman Islands, I loved to run around in my swimsuit when it was raining. That was just something that we did. It was fun, right? But as we get older, we tend to, we say throw away childish things, but things, how many of us, truthfully, and feel free to post it in the comments, if you could, you would throw on your swimsuit and run around in the rain? I know I would. The only thing is, Florida is considered to be like the lightning capital of America, if not the world. So I wouldn't do that here, right? But the thing is, when it's raining, you find me sitting beside the window, and if it's not like constant flashing of lightning, then I'm there and I'm just looking at the water as it's hitting the window, as it's coming down, as it's hitting the lake in the back. And I just, I love being beside the water. I love the ocean. I'm an island girl through and through, right? Hi, Kathleen. So I love that water energy, right? So I think I remember as a little girl, when it was raining, holding my head up and opening my mouth to catch the raindrops. So I think that is where, this particular piece is coming from, is just to kind of, when it's raining, a lot of people I know say, oh my gosh, it's raining, how depressing. But it's that change of, being sunshine all the time to, changing the energy to the water. We have to be able to kind of go with the flow, right? And I think that's where what this is coming from. At least that's what it speaks to me. Whenever we've been diagnosed with a particular condition, things change on a daily basis, right? One day we wake up and we are, in the picture of health and we feel amazing, and one day we wake up and we might be in a lot of pain. So we kind of have to go with the flow of the energy of that particular day. If you feel like you're in a lot of pain that day, then don't do as much. Take the time to rest, listen to your body, and really pay attention to it and do what it's asking you to do. If it's telling you, listen, you just need to rest today, then just rest, right? And then on the days that you do feel really good, and maybe you want to do some gardening or you want to go for a walk, then do so. Kathleen says, I just walk out when rain starts to fall and just let it sprinkle on me. I've done that quite a few times as well, but I just have to make sure that there's no lightning that's occurring in this area. So When the grandmother said to the grandchild, drink the rain, I think that's what she's speaking to, is we kind of have to learn to kind of go with the flow, right? And the other part is savor the sun. Now, I'm going to throw in a caveat here. A lot of people who've been diagnosed with lupus tend to develop photosensitivity, which means that they can't spend as much time in the sun as they used to. And that was something that I dealt with quite a few years back. It's not that way anymore, but when I do go out, I have to make sure I do have on enough sunscreen and that sort of thing. And I encourage that for anyone. Doesn't matter whether you've been diagnosed with lupus or not. Um, but you do need to understand. I think everybody needs the sun. We need the vitamin D. Your body, there's, oh gosh, I don't know how many hundreds of functions within the body that vitamin D helps to perform. So we need that vitamin D, and I know that we can get the pharmaceutical version of it, but there's nothing like going out and sitting in on the ground and just have that sun kind of beat down on you. And I'm not saying do this at midday when the sun is like way up right above you and you're going to get scorching hot. No, the sun doesn't have to be super hot at 2 o'clock in the afternoon for you to get the benefits. You can wake up when the sun is rising, and you can sit outside for that 30 minutes as the sun is coming up, and you get it that way. Or you can go for a walk in the afternoon, or in the evening when the sun is going down. You're still getting the benefits of your vitamin D. You're still getting the sun bath, but it's not scorching hot like at 12 o'clock or 2 o'clock in the afternoon, right? So savoring the sun, but do it carefully, especially if you've received a lupus diagnosis or any kind of autoimmune condition, because I know it's not just limited to lupus. And then the next one is love like love loves. And that's, to me, I think pretty much says it all, the unconditional love. And I think that is something that we strive for. It's hard, I know, for any human being, me especially, to love unconditionally, right? I think there's only one person on this planet who has done that, and that was Jesus himself. Um, I'm still striving toward that. I don't think there's a day that goes by when I don't utter something that's judgmental. But I acknowledge it. I work on trying to figure out where it came from, and I deal with it. But it's something that we strive for, right? Loving someone unconditionally. And like he said, love like love loves. The epitome of love is God himself, right? So that is what our goal is. That was what we strive for. But I think one of the things that we also strive for, which I think is probably one of the hardest things, is loving ourselves, right? That self-love, I know, is so hard. And especially if you received a lupus diagnosis or a chronic condition diagnosis, or if you're going through a rough time, it is so hard to love yourself for who you are in that moment, right? And that is one of the things I encourage, is love yourself through whatever it is that you are going through. I remember when I was first diagnosed, I went through this time of, God, why do you do this to me? I did all of the right things. I did this correctly. I did that correctly. And it was just kind of one of those pity parties, like, I did the right thing. And then you come and you slap me with this thing. And I found myself like, I really went into a deep depression at one time and ended up, seeking a counselor and working through it. But I found that at that time, it's like, how can I possibly love myself? I mean, look at what's going on, right? I was fine up to this point, and then boom, right? But learning to love ourselves through everything that we're going through actually also is a place of healing. When you can say, okay, yes, I woke up this morning with a little bit of pain. I'm going to love myself anyway, right? Love yourself anyway, no matter what it is that we are going through, because there is healing in that space when you acknowledge that no, you're not perfect. Yes, there's this thing going on. Love yourself anyway. There's healing in that acknowledgement, right? One of the things that I've done, and you can choose to do it or not. It's entirely up to you. I'm just gonna share it with you. Is writing a letter. I wrote a letter from me to my completely healed self while I was still in a place of the chronic pain on a daily basis, right? So I sat down and I wrote a letter to my healed self. And that actually, when you can sit down and you can write that letter, you write it, saying I am completely healed, completely free of pain. My skin is beautiful. Every cell in my body functions the way that it is supposed to function. And you're writing that letter to you from you, whether it's 2 months from now, 6 months from now, 6 years from now, you're writing that letter to you from your healed self. It's a very, very powerful modality, right? And I encourage anyone to try, at least try that. If you've never done it before, try it on a day when you are feeling rather good. Because sometimes when you wake up and you're in a lot of pain, the last thing you want to do is to try to visualize yourself healthy, because sometimes that's the hardest place. But to me, the best time to do it is when you're not feeling so bad. And you sit down and you write a letter to yourself from your completely healed self, right? And that right there also helps to propel your healing journey. And if you want something even more powerful, put a date on it. Let's say this is 2022, maybe May of 2023 or May of 2024. Put a date on it. And you write this letter, and then open that letter on the date that you have put on there on the envelope, and see exactly what of it that you've written has come to pass, right? What kind of changes has occurred in your body since then, right? And one of the things I would encourage you to do as well, I have a vision board right here behind me, and one of the segments has to do with health. There are six different segments on here, and one of the pieces is health and wellness. So you can, as you write the letter, once you've written your letter, then create for yourself a health and wellness vision board and collect pictures and different words that you want to embody in your healthy self, however many years from now or however many months from now, and write them, glue them onto your health and wellness vision board, right? And I'm only speaking to the health and wellness portion because that in itself is a big part. To me, once you work on the health and wellness, everything tends to kind of fall into place. But like they said, if you don't have if you don't have your health, you kind of don't have anything, because you focus so much on just trying to get better, right? So for your health and wellness vision board, just collect pictures out of magazines of people, maybe people that you see who look healthy to you, words that speak health to you, and create just a small health and wellness vision board, and have your vision board next to the letter, or you can attach your letter to the side of your vision board, and then open up your letter, um, you know, at whatever date that you wrote on there, however many years or months in the future, right? And place your vision board in a place where you can see it whenever you wake up in the morning, or you can see it several times throughout the day, right? You want it to be very visible, because that's also going to encourage you to kind of keep on the journey. All right. And then one of the things you can do is add on different things that you want to do throughout the day. Maybe one day, maybe twice a week, you want to try to do a 5-minute walk, right? I know I'm saying 5-minute walk, and for some people that's a lot. For some of you, you might be able to do a 30-minute walk. whatever it means for you, whatever is good for you to do. This is a very individualized journey. Every lupus patient is different. Every autoimmune condition, every autoimmune patient is different. So you are going to create this based on you, something that you know that you can do and you can be successful at. So if you can be successful at doing a 5-minute walk twice a week or once a week or however many times a week, then do it. You want to make sure that you're going to be successful at it, and don't compare yourself to what other people are doing. Because for me, I can go out and do a 2-mile walk in 30 minutes or less. I can go out and do a 1-mile run pretty quickly, right? But not everybody is at that place. So you have to do what is going to be what you know that you're going to be able to be successful at. So if that's a 5-minute walk, fine. If it's only walking from your front door down to the mailbox and back, fine. That is entirely up to you. All right. So if you do write that letter, I would love to know, because I would like to be there to kind of help to support you. You can always reach out to me. Let me know. Listen, Gina, I love what you said about that letter. I'm going to try it, and I need some accountability. Would you help me out with that? And I gladly will. You can easily just send me a message on email or direct message me. There's Facebook, Instagram. You'll be able to find me rather easily there. Here's a couple tips for the letter. Show love to the diagnoses that you've received, as well as the lessons that they're teaching you along the way, because that you find that the diagnoses come and lessons also come along with it. So when you're writing your letter, show love to the diagnoses that you've received, as well as the lessons that they're there to teach you. And show love to all of the loss that you may have experienced, because one of the things with any kind of lupus diagnosis or any kind of chronic condition diagnosis, there's loss to be experienced along the way. And it can be hard, but a lot of the times, like I mentioned earlier, sometimes that loss is kind of there to, you shake things up a bit and place you on the path that you need to go on. Sometimes people are removed from your lives. Sometimes it's a good thing, right? Sometimes you may end up losing jobs, and at the time that seemed like a bad thing, but it might also guide you to do things that you may not necessarily have thought about. I was an art teacher for many years, and when I ended up having to quit, I realized that I had to kind of reinvent myself, which is what we're talking about today, right? So I ended up getting certifications in so many different fields since then, in fields that I never thought I would, like crystal healing, like chakra healing, like sound therapy, art therapy. And the art therapy, it tied into the art that I was already teaching, but and the aromatherapy. I became a master herbalist since then. So it kind of propels me on a journey that I was sort of on, but it wasn't serious for me at the time. But getting these diagnoses really kind of shifted things around for me and allowed me to reevaluate my life and kind of pick apart my tapestry and reweave it back together, right? Which is what we're discussing today. So we have to recognize, accept the diagnosis for what it is, and then the part that we may have played in it as well. And all of that is going to propel us onto our healing journey. We have to enter into a commitment of transformation. Once you said, okay, I want to be able to do these things, I want to be able to be healthy, we have to make a commitment to ourselves to get on that path to health, right? So we have to start that process, considering different tools that we may want to work with, different techniques that may enable us to actually get healthy. We also have to develop an awareness. So that's all of that is part of the letter writing and acknowledging where we might have had something to do with us receiving these diagnoses. So develop the awareness that, and as we gather and assemble all of these little pieces together, then we'll see that we're actually putting ourselves back together. We weren't broken. We were literally kind of putting ourselves back to the way that we were supposed to be in the first place, right? And we'll begin to gain insight into that whole complete picture of who we are. And we'll begin to return to who we were prior to our diagnosis. Because it's just a matter of shifting and reweaving our tapestry, right? So I encourage you to also create rituals or routines that are going to enable you to also get you on that path to healing. If you wake up first thing in the morning and all you do is just jump into the kitchen and start to prepare breakfast and you're already kind of frazzled, then start to create a routine where you wake up maybe a few minutes earlier. You spend some time meditating, right? Getting your frame of mind just into that peaceful state, ready to start, to start your day. Maybe set some intentions of what you want to accomplish throughout that day. And those 5 or 10 minutes extra that you give to yourself really sets the tone for the entire day. But if you jump up and you just immediately kind of, start to get frazzled, then that also sets the tone for your day, right? There's a concept by the Japanese called kintsugi, where they put together a broken tapestry using gold or a precious metal, sometimes silver, but mostly it's gold. And they consider that piece of pottery to be even more valuable after it's been broken and pieced back together with the gold. And that's how we should start to look at ourselves, as well as being kind of a kintsugi. It's KINTSUGI. And there are other words like kintsukori is also another word for that. But we're more valuable after all of the things that we have gone through. Right? So that is what I wanted to talk a little bit about today, is how can we kind of reweave the tapestry after this diagnosis, because we kind of pick pieces apart and now we're working on putting us all back together, and we're even more beautiful, more valuable, more precious even after receiving these diagnoses. Right, so that is what I wanted to share with you today. I went a little bit longer than I had anticipated, but I hope that it came across, the message came across clearly. If you have any questions at all, just feel free to post them in the comment section here. I will link I'm actually putting together a playlist of all of these lupus awareness videos so that you can go through and kind of rewatch them at your own convenience. Kathleen says, thank you, food for thought. Definitely. I'm still on the journey. Just because I'm further ahead than a lot of you might be, doesn't necessarily mean that I've reached a destination. Healing is a journey. It's not a destination, right? And it's something that I will probably be on for the rest of my life, because I will get to a place where here's the thing: you can reevaluate and you can reinvent yourself at any time in your life. It's not that the diagnosis is making you reevaluate your life now. Come 10 years, maybe 5 years, even every day. Every day that you wake up, you are a different person. You might wake up saying, you know what, this part is just not working for me right now. Let me see what I need to do, work around that, right? So it could be on a daily basis, and it could be on a monthly, 5 years, whatever. I know people who have like 5-year plans, 10-year plans, but you can reinvent yourself at any time. Right? That's the beauty of this. So I will be here again tomorrow, God's willing, for day 6. This is day 5, all about reweaving your life and different tips on how to do that. So thank you all for sharing this moment with me, or these last 45 minutes with me, and I will see you all again tomorrow.